Hi, we're making vegan maple banana cinnamon rolls. Let's get started. You're going to need a cup of warm coconut milk, unsweetened or non-dairy milk, 1½ tablespoons of dry active yeast. You're going to need about 2 tablespoons of agave syrup or maple syrup. Banana extract is optional. Then you're going to need about a pound of all-purpose flour and 2 mashed up ripe bananas and a teaspoon of sea salt. So first we're going to add our warm non-dairy milk, and we're going to sprinkle some of the dry active yeast on top of it. Now it's important to have your milk warm because it helps dissolve your yeast a lot better than if it was cold. Also, you don't want to overheat your milk to over 140 degrees Fahrenheit because it will kill your yeast and your yeast won't survive, and then you'll have really dense bread. So just give it a good whisk until it starts dissolving. So here's a tip that you don't necessarily need the banana extract, but my bananas were a little underripe, so I just gave it a little more boost by adding the extract to my bananas. So now we're going to add our agave syrup to it. So agave syrup, or any kind of sugar that you add with your dry active yeast or any yeast, it's like food for your yeast. So it's just going to help your yeast be more bubbly and more active and spongy. So just give that a good whisk. So now we're going to add some all-purpose flour. So I'm just adding a little bit here. You want to have a salt barrier. You're going to want to have a flour barrier between your salt and your yeast, because if you put salt directly to your yeast, it will die. It can kill it. So you want to be mindful of that. Now you just want to add enough all-purpose to make it like a paste, and then go ahead and add your bananas and your salt. Give that another whisk. And some more all-purpose flour. So I'm just adding about a teaspoon of banana extract. Like I said, my bananas were not as ripe as I would want them to be, because the riper the better, because then obviously your bananas are sweeter and they're more concentrated in flavor. So this is going to give my bread a little bit more of a banana flavor. So just whisk that a little bit longer. So we're almost there, ready to add the rest of the flour, and then we're going to fold that in and it'll start becoming more like a dough consistency. So now it's like a sticky dough. This is where you don't need to use your spatula anymore. It's now you can flour your bench or your table. Make sure you have any jewelry on your fingers. I would recommend taking them off because you'll have your dough get stuck in them and it'll be a mess to clean. So that's just a little tip there. Also, go ahead and flour your bench. And there's no right or wrong way. Be generous about it because this dough is still quite sticky. So we're going to start kneading this dough here in a moment. Add a little bit more flour. And this is just AP flour, which is all-purpose flour. like I said, you can be generous to flour because at this stage it's really sticky and the water, the moisture from the coconut milk is still absorbing the flour, and you are now folding it and building the glutens in your bread to form the structure of your bread. So you're going to want to knead this about 5 minutes or so because the dough is going to be soft but firm at the same time, if that makes any sense, because when you touch it, it shouldn't be sticking to you. It should be firm but also soft to the touch. So all I do is take the bottom of my palm and I just press down into the middle of the dough and use my other hand to just pull it over, so I fold it in with the other hand as I press down with my palm. So as you can see, it's not sticking to my finger, and it's still holding its shape, and it's quite firm but also soft to the touch as well. Now we're going to get our bowl ready. Spray your bowl with a coconut spray or any vegan spray of choice, and then you're just going to place your ball of dough in there and cover it with foil or plastic wrap or a dish towel and let it sit for about an hour or so. I would like to stick it in by a windowsill in front of like sunlight to get some warmth, and you want it double in size. So now we're back and it's doubled in size. We're going to go ahead and flour our bench again. And we're going to roll out our cinnamon roll dough into a large rectangle shape. So now I'm just going to take it out of the bowl, add a little bit more flour. You just want to keep adding a little bit more flour. You can't go wrong adding flour at this point either, because you are going to be rolling it out and you don't want it sticking to your rolling pin. So I just add a little bit more flour to the rolling pin as well and just start rolling it from the middle out. Now the reason why you want to start rolling your doughs, any dough for that matter, is from the middle out, because you want to evenly distribute the dough evenly throughout the rolling process, because you don't want to have one side thinner than the other. And if you start with the outer edges by rolling, it'll just be uneven. So always start from the middle and work your way out to have an even level dough. Okay, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Your rectangle can be as big or thin as you like. I do about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. So we're going to start making the filling, and it only literally takes 5 minutes. So I just took my dates, which was about 10 ounces of dates with water, and then I put it in the food processor, and now I'm blending it with my mashed bananas, which is 4 mashed bananas, and we're just going to give that a mix. And I will have all these recipes down below, or I'll have it linked to my website. So we're just going to mix the dates, the pureed dates, and the bananas, and the 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, and a little bit of banana extract. Now that's just your choice, you don't have to. And that was about 2 teaspoons banana extract. I'll just give that a good mix, and then we'll be spreading that on top of our dough. Now we're ready to spread it on our dough. Now I didn't use all of this filling. If you want, you can reserve it and freeze the rest for another time if you want to make another batch of cinnamon rolls, but that's entirely up to you. I would recommend not using it all because you don't want it too thick, because if you make it too thick, as you roll it, it's just gonna it is just overflow and it will be just a big mess. So you can use your pizza cutter or your pastry cutter to trim your edges if you want to square up more of your rectangle. So I'm gonna spread this out with my spatula. You can also use a offset spatula too, which is those metal spatulas that are at an angle. Whichever you prefer, or you can use the back of a spoon, whichever is easy for you. You just need to evenly spread it out. Another thing too, if you want to just make plain, no sugar added cinnamon rolls, you don't even need to use the bananas. You can just use the dates and the half a cup of water and blend that up, and that would make a good paste feeling for that too. So we're going to add some toasted pecans. You can use toasted walnuts or almonds, whatever kind of toasted nut you prefer is entirely up to you. But this time I'm using pecans. So now we're going to start rolling our cinnamon rolls. You just keep rolling it until you get to the very end to the other side. So I like to start rolling on the longer side of my rectangle, not the shorter end, just because I get more cinnamon rolls out of it than if I started on the other side of my cinnamon rolls. And yes, this can be a sticky mess, but hey, if your fingers aren't getting dirty while you bake, well, you're not baking. So I would say just have fun with it. Okay, so we have it just about rolled up here, and now what you want to do is get some roasting twine, or I like to use a unscented dental floss to cut my cinnamon rolls instead of a knife. It's just a lot easier, it's less messier, and cleaner cuts. So I just trimmed my edges here, and now I'm going to start cutting my portions for my cinnamon roll. So what I like to do is take the end of my cinnamon roll and just tuck it underneath so it doesn't buckle or burst at the bottom as it bakes, so I can keep a tight roll on my cinnamon rolls. Now, if you're doing deep dish cinnamon rolls in a baking pan, that wouldn't really matter because they're all going to be baking side by side, and you won't have a problem with that. But if you are baking them like I am here on a baking tray, I recommend tucking the ends of your cinnamon roll on the bottom so it doesn't burst at the seams. So just continue to cut your cinnamon roll all the way through with your twine or fishing. You can use fishing wire too, whichever you prefer. Or if you like to use a knife, that's entirely up to you. Okay, so we're going to let these proof for about 20 minutes. So I baked them and they only took about 20-30 minutes in the oven at 375. And they smell delicious. They just have that wonderful cinnamon, maple smell to them, and bananas. It's really good. So now I'm going to drizzle some pure maple syrup on top and a little bit more of toasted pecans. some toasted pecans on top. If you want to dust some cinnamon sugar or powdered sugar, that'd be great. So there you are. Here's your maple cinnamon rolls. I hope you guys enjoy these as much as I did. Thank you so much.